Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final Super Nintendo fighting games video. It's Fighting Games Volume 7. I know, we're all lucky and happy to be here. You give to the channel, we'll go to making the channel better. Thank you. Now let's start. Okay, here we are in the grand finale. And what's the grand finale? It's the series that revolutionized the genre and spawned a million imitators. It's Street Fighter. And what's the first Street Fighter we're looking at? It's Street Fighter 2. Regular Street Fighter 2. We'll get to the other versions of Street Fighter 2 on the consoles in a minute. The first time I ever played this game was in a pizza joint. They had an arcade cabinet of the game. I was probably 4 or 5, and I remember I was with my grandmother at the time. I remember her pulling me away from it when we left. This version of Street Fighter 2 is a fairly reasonable port of the arcade game. It's really the king of fighters, despite what SNK might claim. Most of what you see in other fighters comes from this game, like the map screen, the versus screen, the screen where you talk trash after whooping your opponent or getting whooped. But the main innovation that Street Fighter 2 brought to the genre, aside from being really well crafted, is the ability to choose your character. I'm not super knowledgeable on fighters, but I'm fairly certain this is the first game that did this. I'm sure someone will tell me otherwise in the comments below. And how is the game? Pretty darn good. It's Street Fighter 2. It revolutionized an industry. Of course it's good. This version is good on the Super Nintendo. I was reared on this game. You get 8 players to choose from: Ryu, Ken, Guile, Chun-Li, Zangief, E Honda, Blanka, and Dhalsim. 8 characters that are eternally scarred into the flesh of video gaming. Now this game is Street Fighter, the World Warrior, and this is an international group of combatants battling for, I don't really know, the story's not that clear, but you're fighting a terrorist dude, who in the movie is played by Raul Julia. Each character comes from somewhere else in the world and has a different type of fighting style. There's the giant wrestler Zangief from the USSR, there's the rich kid Ken from the US, there's the crazy electrified man-beast Blanka from Brazil, Guile, a US soldier you fight on an Air Force base, the stretchable Dhalsim you fight in a Hindu temple, E Honda, the sumo wrestler from Japan, Chun-Li, the only female fighter that you fight in the streets of Hong Kong, and I have no idea what this guy is doing to that chicken. And lastly, you have Ryu, the eternal warrior who travels the land seeking out opponents to fight, his only goal being to become the greatest warrior there ever was. Each of these characters has their own special moveset that pretty much everyone knows. I would be hard pressed to find someone who regularly plays video games and doesn't know the Hadouken, the Sonic Boom, and the Yoga Flame, just to name a few things. Or the Tiger Uppercut. I'm sure that if Blanka shouted something before his electrical attack, that'd be on my list too. The fact of the matter is that this is Street Fighter 2. You know it, I know it, the American people know it. It's great. You play a character, beat up the other characters all over the world, and then fight the boss characters. Vega, the douchiest character in all games, he jumps on his cage and then jumps at you. He's a douche. Then you got Mike Tyson rip-off Balrog. He's the guy that only throws punches. Then you got Sagat, aka that asshole, and M. Bison. These are the characters, their moves indelible, their legacy undeniable, the gameplay smooth as silk with controls that would become standard. This game also created the blueprint for how special move inputs are done for fighting games. Whenever I play a fighting game I've never played before, I'll input the Hadouken button combination, and half of the time the character performs a special move. No joke. This game is the game for fighting games. The only thing that you could really improve about it is that it's sort of slow and you can't play as the boss characters. Which leads me into ... Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Now if there's one thing Street Fighter is known for, it's all the many renditions of Street Fighter there are. On the Super Nintendo, we got 3 versions of Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the second version. I used to get Street Fighters 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo mixed up all the time, and it would often lead to disappointment. Street Fighter 2 Turbo is superior in that you can increase the game speed, and it allows for you to play as Sagat, Vega, Balrog, and M. Bison. This game is basically the same as the game before it, despite the 2 biggest changes, as well as some smaller tweaks here and there. And oh my gosh, did I forget to talk about the bonus stages? So yeah, all Street Fighter games have bonus stages. You got the stage where you beat up a car, you got the stage where you beat up the bricks, and in one of these Street Fighters I'm reviewing, you got the stage where you beat up the barrels. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of beating up the barrels. Sorry. Just imagine being Ryu and Ken or any other character fighting an anthropomorphic barrel with arms and legs, and that's essentially the bonus stage in a nutshell. The most indelible bonus stage in these games is beating up the car. This bonus stage has been repeated many times in many Street Fighter sequels. It's so connected to the series that whenever I see someone attacking a car in real life, I think to myself, KO. Being able to play as the boss characters is pretty cool. I never cared much to play as Balrog, but M. Bison and Sagat are a good time. They are real bruisers that can totally brutalize your opponent. Vega, on the other hand, D-bag character. If I were ever playing against someone and they chose Vega, I knew never to trust them in real life. Overall, it's a good update. It's what the game should have been when it was first put out, and it doesn't really feel much like a sequel. But it's Street Fighter. It's enjoyable. The next Street Fighter game the SNES would receive is Super Street Fighter 2: The New Challengers. This is the same game more or less to the others. The major difference is the inclusion of 4 new characters. You got T-Hawk, an indigenous American, or Native American, or whatever the proper nomenclature is. Either way, I don't think he makes any sense. His character model has all the iconography of the American Indian, but the stage he comes with is clearly reminiscent of the native peoples of central Mexico. So I don't know what the fuck his deal is. Either way, I don't care to play as him. His moves are clunky and he's hard to use. He's like another Zangief, basically. The next character you get is DJ. I never played as the kickboxer DJ. He has a slide kick I like, but there are better characters. His stage does have dancing girls in it, however. God bless him. One of the things that all the other Street Fighters before this lacked was a good Bruce Lee ripoff. In this rendition of Street Fighter, Capcom gives the world Fei Long, a Bruce Lee ripoff if there ever was one. He's a really fast and powerful character. He's got his lunge kick attack where he jumps forward and knees the opponent and then kicks them. It's effective, and when I play the computer, I usually just spam this. It works pretty well. Well, most of the time. And lastly, but absolutely not least, is Cammy. After Fei Long and Ryo, she's my go-to fighter. She's fast, has good reach, and some good special moves that thrust her forward and go with the flow of my style of fighting. Additionally, she is not wearing pants. Super Street Fighter 2: The New Challengers is my favorite Street Fighter. It's the one I'm best at, and it's the one I have the most nostalgia for. This is definitely my go-to Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo. Street Fighter Alpha 2 is the last Street Fighter that would hit the SNES. It's the sequel to the prequel of the original. This game has a new art style and anime art style. Not my thing, but it's still pretty good to look at. The roster in this particular Street Fighter is very different from the others so far. The game really mixes it up, bringing in characters from many different games in the series, as well as Final Fight. A few new characters to the series make their first appearance in this game. Returning Street Fighter 2 characters are Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Sagat, Zangief, Dhalsim, and M. Bison, as well as Akuma, who was in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which did not make its appearance on the SNES. Then, from Street Fighter 1, you have Adon and Gen. From Final Fight, you have Guy, Sodom, and Rolento. New characters now include Birdie, Rose, Charlie, Sakura, and the parody character, Capcom's poke in the eye at SNK, Dan. I know people dislike this Street Fighter on the SNES, but I enjoy it. It plays as well as any Street Fighter on the console. I like the new addition of characters, particularly Guy, who is really fast and fun to play as. The game is really easy, however. That's my only complaint. I can beat it in 15 minutes on normal mode without getting a single game over. The other thing that I don't like is that the game has a small freeze up at the start of every match. This is because the audio is being loaded in. The first time this happened when I was playing the game, I thought my copy of the game was busted or something. Street Fighter Alpha 2 is pretty good. I really can't knock it. It's a good way to end the series run on the Super Nintendo, and it's not a bad way to end this video. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please go to my Patreon, become a patron, give me your money. It'll go towards making really cool videos and hopefully keeping me out of jail for being, a cannibal. With that being said, have a good night and I'll see you next time.